Hi, everyone, and welcome to Total Education with Neil. And it seems like a year ago since the last show, just because Jennifer and I had our fifth child, Xavier, and I have hardly get any sleep. It just seems like every day just continues to go, and it's like Groundhog Day. And I decided to finally shave the beard a little bit from last time. It was looking like Grizzly Adams yesterday. So I thought, let's look great and do some great TV and have some great conversation. And what I really enjoy about this television show is what we're trying to do is take people through education from birth all the way up to adulthood with my co-host, Jared. Jared, how are you?
Neil, I'm doing very well, and congratulations. I'm happy to hear about the baby and just that Jennifer's doing well, and you guys are all hanging in there. And I really feel bad. My sympathy really lies with Jennifer. She's carrying that awesome load and burden of taking care of that family, and then also taking care of you.
Taking care of me, that's probably the hardest thing of all this. But we were talking about last week, which was very interesting, was we're taking about birth to 2 years old in different areas of development. And we were finished up gross motor, went to fine motor skills, and we continue. And 2 months you're providing some of your strategies. Well, I wanted to kind of look at things that I look at in fine motor skills. And that's just basically what I do is I'll just kind of circle around my fingers, have them grab them, have them grab different certain things when they're in their lying down, different things
while they're on their back in their car seat.
So you're kind of already looking at specifically going back to belly, which we've already talked about. But this is also a time for fine motor to work on grasping, different things like this at that 2 month age. Because I think what's so key about it, Jared, is that you want them just to start to really move around and stuff. And already Xavier's starting to get to that point, so you want to put your fingers out there, bring them around, all those different things.
I'm going to jump in here quickly because you've spoken about how so much of these early months of parenting is devoted to meeting just those needs, the basic needs, feeding, diapering, and it's hard to sometimes we lose sight as adults, parents, to make that connection where it's not work and it's play, it's occupation. That child, even at that age, they're developing that sense of play, that sense of belonging, even within their community, and that's what I think the feedback from this show, this kind of different direction we've taken with this show, has been incredibly positive. And initially we had talked about how, are we being so detailed? Are we going to lose our audience because we're going so detailed and focusing on birth to 3, birth to 2? And it turns out it's kind of the opposite. The audience seems to be seeking even more because
more advice,
I think they're seeing this significant connection when we take away that element of saying, oh gosh, I don't get any sleep. All I'm doing is changing diapers. The baby cries every 2 hours to be fed. And we're seeing instead this response of, now we're able to, as adults, we're able to take more out of this and find enjoyment.
Exactly.
There was a recent study just released that said that, and I really was stunned by this. I believe it, but I was stunned that said that married couples without children are the happiest. Married couples with children are the unhappiest.
But how many married couples that are without children? Not many.
But the point being is that the study was really focusing on the joy that children provide to adults, because when we enter parenting, we always, I think every parent, the best ones, the ones that need more help, we still have this vision of what parenting is going to be. When we adopted our son, I had a clear vision of what it was going to be. It hasn't exactly been that vision, but it has been wonderful. And I thought, what happens when, to those families that say, it hasn't been what we thought, and I think we were happier before. And so the significance of this show is I think us providing that advice, those suggestions to our audience that says, this should be joyful. I mean, there's an element of happiness, but it should go beyond that. It should be joy.
Exactly. It should definitely be joy. And interesting what you said about the study. I think it's basically looking at the self needs of the parents in a way, not the kids, and that kids bring you joy by the development. They're a work in progress, a tremendous work in progress with 5 kids. And I think that's probably one of my books I'll have to write in certain aspects, being only child growing up, to now having a family of 5 and knowing that there's no time for me. There's no time for me. And I really don't care that there's time for me. But I think it's hard and difficult for my wife to look at this as well. She grew up in a family of 3, but the births were close, not so close together. You're looking at now, Xavier just turned 1 month old, okay? And Max is not even 2. And Annika is only 3. And Anastasia will turn 5 in February. So those 4, it's not what you see in school for sure. So what you're talking about is really just all we're trying to do is get them to do things.
Let's jump right into that fine motor. Yeah.
Which we've been talking about. And I remember you were at the 2-month-old spot, but those are the strategies I'm going to do. Is I'm going to do really simple things where I'm going to have them grasp different things. At about 3 months, we're kind of doing 2 strategies. We're utilizing fine motor and gross motor, which we talked about on the show before. First, with the fine motor, you get those little rattles, you get those little toys. It's kind of like training a cat, and then and honestly,
which you can't do, by the way.
Well, you
can train a dog, but a cat.
Yes, and please get my cat out. The cat came back the very next day. If you're a fan of Dave over in South Carolina, Hilton, I forget his name. It'll come to me in some sort of manner. So think about it. You have those little toys, you're going ahead and jingling them so they can grasp it. Tell us why they're interested in doing that. And then we're having them on the back. We have our little activity center, where you put this mat out and then you have them kind of doing this. And tell us a little bit about why do this to help the fine motor.
Right. Now, at 3 months, your child is not necessarily going to be able to sit upright on their own. They're definitely going to need support, even like in a car seat. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at when they're on their bellies. Now, at 3 months, they should be spending significant time on their bellies. That provides them that opportunity to get those hands out in front of them while they're on their bellies. So they're reaching out, they're out in front of them. They're going to be flexing those fingers. They're going to be gripping the blanket, the carpet, whatever might be out there. They're learning the skill, the dexterity involved with manipulating those fingers. Still going to be whole hand. They're not going to be if they grab anything with 1 or 2 fingers, it's going to be purely accidental, but a wonderful accident. As we say in my house, a happy accident. But so spend some time on that belly. Give your child that opportunity to reach out for things that really are right near them, a blanket with nice fuzzy things on it, little strings. But again, you can use the rattles right now, put them on their bellies, having them reach for that. Now, let's position them more in a sitting position. Here's where you can use the high chair. You're not really using a high chair yet for feeding, but you can put a child at 3 months in a high chair. They're totally going to be supervised because you don't want them tipping over. They're not going to have that kind of muscle control yet, but you can prop them in there with blankets and some small pillows, things that are going to really pack them in there and provide them that opportunity for stability in the upper portion of their body. So now they can reach out and use those hands and fingers. Keep this in mind. When that child is born, even going into that 3rd week of life, they're not exactly sure what these are in front of them.
No, they're not sure
But
at all.
At 2 months, they are. And at 2 months, they're beginning to reach and grab for things and even being able, maybe with a little bit of help, to get them into their mouth. And that's significant. So now
you start seeing possibly at 2 months that they're starting to put it in their mouth. And that's
absolutely.
part of that's part of fine motor as well.
Fine motor, absolutely.
Because we're going to go into adaptive as well. So we're not looking at jumping so quickly back and forth to different ways. We're definitely going to look at adaptive as well.
But you have a 2-month-old, you want to put that child on the floor. Again, you're going to be supervising them on their bellies and providing rattles, big things for them to reach, but big things that will actually have some holes in them. So there's nice rattles that are rather large, maybe 6 inches, make some sounds, maybe even light up. You don't need light up toys really yet, but but also have some, like the way linking rings are, or
Right.
like the way this little
Yeah.
thing is here, something that a finger can get in there even accidentally. That's going to help them grab onto things, because if any parent, caregiver, teacher out there in a daycare knows, they're going to be using their whole hand. In fact, that thumb is going to be on the outside. That thumb isn't even going to turn in yet because they just haven't learned to control it. So spend lots of time on the belly, providing that child time to explore. On the belly, they're probably not going to be able to get anything into their mouth yet. You know, that's going to only be about reaching out and grabbing. But here's the other significant part of belly time. They're going to actually be using those hands and fingers to start to push up off of the floor. That's going to build wonderful strength within the fine motor, but wonderful strength in the gross motor.
So
Big
why?
muscle.
So why? When should you do these things? You know, I believe, and we've always talked about, because when we were developmental therapists, that 1 hour session once a week or twice a week that provide an early intervention is what they need to do every day.
Right.
But there's still so many more opportunities in that.
Sure. Let's build it around daily routines. You know, you've made that diaper change, or if you have other children, it's the perfect time to put your youngest one, your 2-month-old, down on the floor and take care. Briefly, take care of those other children that are involved. Again, at this point, vigilance is absolutely the most important thing that you can have with your infant. You need to be vigilant. So the child's on the floor. You have animals. You have other children. There's an easy accident that is there. We talked about the value of a playpen.
Yeah.
You know, that's the value of a playpen. It provides a real secure and safe mechanism for your infant. Again, especially though with an infant, floor time, you need to be able to watch and see where their face is. But so the floor time, but we're talking daily routines. You've changed a diaper, you've done feeding, you've washed your hands, you've brought the car seat in from a trip to the grocery store. Take some time to put a few groceries away, just a few of them. Put your little one, your 2-month-old, down on the floor. Let them explore while you're nearby. And then now we talk about the beautiful social connection. Then you take your time to get down on the floor with your 2-month-old. It can only, if it's only 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes of a wonderful.
I say 1 hour.
Well, right, but I mean, we're talking over the course of a whole day.
Right.
You know, you take 5 minutes of chunk time. You know, you do that every time you change a diaper with a 2-month-old. You've suddenly looked at 40 minutes, 50 minutes of nice time with your child.
And it's difficult when changing a 1-month-old, especially the number of dirty diapers, especially late at night and different things. So when we get back, more total education with Neil and with Jarrett, and we're going to kind of really delve into more fine motor going all the way up to 2 years old. Yep. So one place you can find me is go to my website, totaltutor.net, Twitter, Total Tutor. So people say, what's Twitter? That's the way you can ask me questions. Go ahead and tweet me questions, and Jarrett will find out through snail mail how to answer them. We'll be back in just a moment.
What are you doing, dear?
My finances. Every week I divide my allowance, some to spend, some to charity. But the first thing I do is set aside 10% to save for my future.
That's awfully grown up. Did you learn that in school?
No, Dad taught me. He said if you want something tomorrow, you have to save today. Dad's saving for retirement. I'm saving for a new bike.
Choose to save. To learn how to get started, get your free Power to Choose brochure.
He's a smart man, your father.
We're back with Total Education with Neil and with my co-host Jarrett. We're talking fine motor skills in this whole marathon of from birth all the way up to adulthood in education. So we have a long time to do this. I'll probably have gray hair and no hair at all, which I already hardly don't have anymore. And Jarrett, we'll see if your hair will stay by the time we go through this whole process and different things. So fine motor, I got it. We are in the right place, right time. I think you go from 3 months to 6 months now. 3, 4, 5, you're probably doing the same things. But 6 months when they're starting to sit up, you're starting to put them in a high chair. Big time to really allow them the opportunity to start grasping at more things.
Absolutely. Now you have your child in the high chair. It's 6 months. they are able to sit in that high chair, maybe with a little bit of support, maybe reclined a little bit, but now you have the beauty of that high chair tray. And you don't have to give your child at 6 months. You're still going to be cautious about what's in front of them as far as a feeding circumstance here. And keep this in mind for our audience knows this, but we'll remind them anyway. Everything at 6 months is going in that child's mouth. So at that point, it needs to be big. It needs to be blunt, not sharp at all. So if you're putting keys out in front of your child at that point, you need to know, let's not even talk about the germ factor here, but keys can hurt a child.
Yeah, so we want toy keys.
Yeah, sure.
So a lot of the same stuff. But then you think about feeding time, and then which we've done talked about in our television show. So it's very easy to kind of go right to it. Right. So feeding time. Feeding time can become so monotonous and so annoying, even at this early age, because now we're finally starting to introduce them to little finger puffs at about 6 months. We're starting to look at certain baby food that we're starting
maybe a banana that's
things
smashed.
Like this. So this is time where you could be very meticulous about things and say, I don't want them to get dirty. Right. Or you can let them explore and tell us how we can explore.
And again, here's where you really want to know your child. If we look at the the box of baby food or a jar of baby food, or the puffs, for instance, it will absolutely say there, the whole kind of cautionary tale involved there. Don't do this if your child is not able to sit in the high chair yet. If your child really isn't able to start to manipulate, there's no teeth there yet. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll have one. That would be early, but they need to be able to manipulate that jaw to be able to kind of crush or dissolve even those things. But here's the wonderful thing you can use. Now you can use formula or breast milk to mix into rice mixture, single grain rices, oatmeals, whatever your child will tolerate. And you can make those thick enough that the child can actually get them on their fingers.
Exactly.
Now, if your child isn't doing that, even at 6 months, some children are showing signs of not wanting to be too messy. But here's what you can do with your child. Take their hand at the wrist, between the elbow and the wrist. Let them guide their hand in there. Let them dip their fingers in there. If they don't bring it up to their mouth, I think they will, but if they don't, again, guide that mouth right up, those fingers right up to the mouth. I know I've done this with parents many, many times. Children are, at that age, at any age, they're brilliant, but at that age, they learn so quickly that they are feeding themselves. I mean, they're having fun, they're smiling, they're exciting, but they've learned that, wow, I can use these fingers to get this food into my mouth. I'm not going to be able to use utensils yet. Maybe they can hold a spoon. They're not going to use it, and if they use it, it will be accidental. Right. But they can start to dip their fingers into their single grain rice mixture, oatmeal, maybe a smashed banana. You mentioned puffs. They might not be able to pinch it together, but the nice thing about a puff is if you get it a little bit wet, it sticks to the finger.
So you think about 9 months for the puff more?
Yeah, you can introduce it earlier, but just again,
but you're not expecting them. You're not expecting them to really grasp it.
Yeah, you're not even going to give them the whole one. You're going to cut it into a half, a quarter. Break a tiny, tiny piece off. I'm always cautious with the child when it comes to eating. I don't think my son had a hot dog until he was probably 4 years of age, and then we still cut it into so many small pieces. But there's plenty of other foods that you can use. Again, you can mash, you can blend apples, you can mash bananas, you can use the breast milk or the formula to create a wonderful range of foods. You can now start to explore baby foods.
Thinking about that whole fine motor thing, it really is simple stuff. Again, the daily routine. And when you have them on the floor, you still can be trying different strategies to implement all that. But fine motor seems pretty simple compared to when we were talking about walking, which I definitely, a person like Jarrett, that's the person you go and you ask that question. Very interesting. Our producer, Dave Cable, went and asked Jarrett a question. These are the great resources that we have here on the Total Education Network. Now, fine motor, we continue with the feeding. About, I'd say, a year of age, we can maybe start to introduce those like Etch-a-Sketch type of things. those little writer things where you put them in and you allow them to start to draw little lines. I'm not saying introducing crayons and coloring and all that stuff. We're going to probably look at that in a year and a half. What's very interesting in fine motor is the stuff you're doing at the beginning, you continue to do, unlike walking or talking.
Right, and here you can, even if the child doesn't, even at a year, a child, maybe if they get lucky, they might mark something with like the magnadoodle that you're talking about. But again, the nice thing about that is it's a nice thick kind of pencil on it. If you remember what those are like, they can grab it. They're going to reach over. They're probably going to reach it this way, you know, with the hand turned over and do that. But again, that's a great opportunity. And here you can use your high chair again. You place that box right in front of them. But now you're allowing your child at a year to grasp, hold, explore again with their mouth at a year of age. By doing that, you're going to be providing your child the opportunity to use a spoon to help feed themselves. But this is all the time that you're looking at for poking, grabbing, maybe starting to take that single finger and start to turn something that might be in there or to press a button. So at a year, there's a lot of great things that you're doing. But just to go back to that whole feeding thing for only a moment, at 6 months, this is a great opportunity now for the parent to get a momentary break during feeding. So instead of the parent constantly putting that spoon up to the child's mouth, by letting that child feed themselves, what can the parent do? The parent can actually turn and wash their hands, can actually give a napkin to the other child, can maybe clean the counter.
Could you imagine with 5?
Well, right. Well, but now you'll have plenty of opportunity now to actually engage with those other
and how many high chairs now?
4.
We have 3 packet places around.
But you know, these things are small, and they're brief, but they're significant, and that the parent can now, or the caregiver now, cannot feel so overwhelmed. I'm going to let Max explore his oatmeal right there, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn around and open the mail. And you open the mail and you come back and you see how Max is doing. If a parent wants to be totally involved with the feeding, now they can watch their child and they can actually praise them when they've accomplished getting those fingers
and that could
into
go
their
into
mouth.
where we're going into cognitive at one point in time. And that's really one of the expertise that's really interesting because it's involving all the different areas. But ultimately, it's just seeing them develop in so many ways and why they do things and when they do things. But with fine motor, 1 year, the Etch-a-Sketch, whatever it's called, the little magnadoodle,
right,
whatever, you're teaching them to just explore it. We're not looking at straight lines, different things like that.
Hitting it.
18 months, we're going to start looking a little bit at trying some of the scribbling
Yep.
and stuff like that. So really fine motor develops in that process. So we go to 18 months. You talked about on our show, our radio show, that at 18 months we could start getting some crayons out. Am I correct? Or are you saying 24?
We could definitely get some crayons out. They're going to go into the mouth.
And
but you can,
people worried about the toxicity of them.
Right, but crayons aren't toxic. But there's also
some people believe that.
Okay, well there's some new kind of crayons that are actually nice and big and chunky that can actually fit in the palm, because your child at 18 months is still going to grab that crayon with a full grasp.
I'll have to think of trying that with Max now.
So it'll be a full grasp. They'll most likely turn the hand over like this. And again, if your child is not scribbling on that paper, and you know, your child is going to do this for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. They're not going to color. They are not going to color for 10 minutes.
He'll go on that Etch-a-Sketch, Max, about 18 months. Okay. And that's where I'm thinking more about him, because it's hard to look back to Ava. But he will start to do that. Right. And it's very interesting. His gross motor is unbelievable. Throwing the ball like far as could be. So doing that and kind of drawing with them. So that you're going to model those different things. You're going to model the straight line. You're going to model a circle. And now, because they're talking more, they're going to be able to say circle, square, repeat different things.
Or make some sounds even. So now maybe you take here again, we talked about that hand over hand technique. Help the child between the wrist and the elbow. And you're going to, if they grab that marker, that magnadoodle, and you take their little hand and you just slide it across that paper. They see the mark, but you apply a sound like zip or zoom. Give them a great chance to use some what we term as exclamatory sounds in developmental therapy. Just funny things. They don't have any meaning to them at all, but it gives the child a nice repertoire of sounds to try and making. But again, if your child is not doing this, mom and dad at home, what you can do is you help them. You let them grab that, and really let them try and grab it. If they don't grab it, they will.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, but once they grab it, you take their hand and you, just like what you said, you slide it across like that. The other thing that you might see your child do is actually dab it, and kind of bang it, and that is okay too, because actually when they feed themselves those first few times with that spoon, they're not going to be scooping. Scooping is going to come later, 2 years of age maybe. Right. Could happen as early as that, but what they will do is actually they'll take their fork or their spoon and they are going to just jab it into their yogurt, their pudding, their ice cream if you're giving them that, applesauce. They're not going to scoop yet. So it's a great opportunity to connect that with crayons, markers, some of the other things that you can do.
Think about the fine motor in a lot of ways. We're even talking about the hammer. Max loves his hammer. And cringe people, it's a toy hammer, but it doesn't do well on just white walls. Right. So a lot of things, if you want your kids to explore fine motor, your perfectionism has to disappear. Your wanting everything perfect has to disappear because kids are so about exploring. Right. So you grab the hammer, he'll hit some of his toys, but he might hit the wall, he might hit you, his sister, right. And fine motor. Another thing, grabbing the hair and pulling it. Yeah. Max does that stuff. So talk about a strategy we don't want to happen. Max will go and grab those kids' hair and just take a handful. How's that developing his fine motor skills?
Well, it is. I mean, he's learning to grasp. He's tightening that grip. He's
trust me.
And again, we're venturing into social and cognitive, and that what we're seeing is impulse control. A child at that age has no impulse control.
You can't teach them. You can't discipline them.
No, right, and it's not the time to actually discipline them. Here's what. Well, let's say it's not the time to punish. It's always the time for discipline. And by discipline, we go back to the ancient term of discipline, which is to teach, the disciple. We've taken that word discipline and we've made it almost into a harsh word.
And keep that thought.
Yes.
Because we are going to have to take a break. When we get back, more Total Education with Neil and Jarrett, fine motor skills. We'll be back in just a moment.
Is your body holding you back?
Where do you think you're going?
I want to go running.
Not with that knee, you're not.
Your bones and joints can say no at any age.
Let's not pick her up. What do you say?
Yet a lot of people in pain fight back.
Use your head. Save your back. My bride, my rules.
And regain their lives.
You gotta be kidding me.
Fight for your mobility. Visit anationinmotion.org. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
I'll take it from here.
We're back to the Total Education with Neil, and enjoying this fine motor stuff, because now we're reliving a lot of things. I feel like I'm in two different developmental stages in babydom. I have a 2 month. I know. I have a 1 month old and an 18-month old. So Max is developing really well with his fine motor in a way of doing certain things, by grabbing hair, doing certain aspects of things. When you talked about holding that thought about discipline, I know you want to bring up that fact, but that's involving more of the cognitive end. What strategy would you have so that he lets go of his sister's hair so that the sister doesn't pummel him, or worst case scenario, make him cry?
Although that could possibly teach him, but here's the interesting thing about this, and this is, as adults, we often think, sure, let his older sister teach him. And what do we find? That it has no impact on Max. He may cry, he may get mad, but an hour later, 2 hours later, he's gone right back and done the same behavior. So what we have to look at is, did that punishment of his sister pushing him, screaming at him, maybe hitting him or pulling his hair back, did it have any consequence? Did it have any long-lasting effect? And the answer is no. And this is why we've talked so much on our show and in previous shows about the role of punishment and how punishment is something we really want to try to avoid. But the role of discipline and then to teach. So here's what I would say to a parent, and I would do this very cautiously and quite almost apologetically, and that is try to avoid that behavior. Try to be there to keep it from happening. But if you can't, get that little hand away from the hair and simply put Max somewhere else. Move him to another part of the room. He's hammering on his peg, his large pegboard, and he's all happy. But then he starts taking the hammer and he hits his brother or hits the wall. You could say no.
Yeah.
You could say, no, don't do that. That's not nice. You could go into a nice long explanation. You could even start to say, well, let's introduce timeout. Here's what I would say to do. And that would simply be to take his little hand, if he still has the hammer, and say, we bang right here. This is where we're going to bang. Or you can bang on the floor.
And he won't probably get it, but it's more about, it's a constant
He will
repetition.
get it eventually, right.
A constant repetition.
Yes. Yeah, he will get it eventually. But what we know doesn't work is the punishment factor of it. I'm taking your hammer away. That has no impact on an 18-month-old.
Well, so which it has impact on us, at least it stops the situation.
Well, it does, you're right. And that would be the benefit of it. And then I might suggest to a parent, well, maybe we don't want to give him the hammer at all. Or give it to him in a certain specific type of circumstance or situation. But keep in mind, what we give to a child, what we give to an 18-month-old, they're going to take somewhere else with them. So if we give them that toy hammer, we have to expect that they are going to want to explore what you said. And they are exploring. Wow, if I bang on this wood, that's a totally different sound than if I hit my brother's head with it. There's a different sound associated with it.
Right.
Or there's a different reaction.
So
there's some learning there.
So in the fine motor, some of the strategies I would look at, particularly involving lots of things with their hands. Now at 18 months, let them pick up things, explore things, the remote control, let them explore. Throwing is more gross motor, but it's kind of like you want them to grasp it, you want them to pick it up. Sure. They pick up your cell phone, that's great. They pick up, they feel your beard, they grab on, they tug on certain things, a tie, scapular, whatever they're grabbing on, they're developing those fine motor skills. This is the time where now you are starting to feed them and they're grabbing your hand.
Yes. Telling you they want to feed themselves.
They're grabbing your hand. So allow them to grab your hand. And then here's the probably hardest thing, and I remember you telling this on the radio show. We start doing the feeding thing, and they just don't want you to feed them anymore.
That's right.
You give it to them. It's a complete, utter mess.
Yep.
So
It is.
give us a strategy how we stop that. Or not stop that, how we have it. It's worthwhile. It's a great strategy. Right. It might not be every meal, but it's really increasing those fine motor skills.
So here's what again, modification, adaptation. If you want your child to feed themselves, but you also don't want to spend the next 20 minutes cleaning everything around. So what can you do? Provide your child with the food that you do.
20 minutes. It takes me an hour to clean up for lunch every day.
You're going to have to be much more. Well, you have 5 kids, so now you have much more to clean. But you have that one single child who's starting to get really messy during that feeding. So at 18 months, you're 20 months, you're now saying here's what I suggested to parents all the time. You have multiple foods out there. Oh, you want to feed yourself, Max? That's for you right there. And you're socializing it. You can have that. That's yours right there. Daddy's going to feed you this. Oh, you want the spoon? That's yours right there. I can give you the spoon. You can use it on that. So provide that child alternatives that are not as messy. At 18 months, give them the chunky foods, the biscuits, the French toast that you've made. Let them grab that.
Oh, he loves the biscuit. Yeah.
Right, so cut that into squares. You're feeding them the things that are messier, the applesauce, any kind of pureed baby foods. That's what you're controlling. You control that. But here's some great things you can use that are not nearly as messy. Mashed potatoes. Make them nice and thick so that if they do start to go flying, you still have that nice clump, looks like a snowball, not as hard to clean. But modify. Say to your child, here's what you can eat. But it also shows your child, here's where we talk about discipline. It shows the child their role in the home. You do get to feed yourself, but that's it. Daddy gets to do this. We talked about in behavioral therapy, the art of the compromise. What's starting at 18 months? Well, you want to feed yourself. I want you to feed yourself. That's for you. This is for me. Oh, you want this? That's for you. This is for me. And you keep doing that with your child. And your child, they want to please you. They will do that for you. So let your child do that. And then sometimes allow your child to get messy. Now you can have the pudding, Max. Now we're going to let you, because you know this, and our audience knows, they're going to get messy regardless.
And then Max is not as messy as Annika, who's 3 and still doing all that. But, I don't think they ever stop.
Different set of circumstances in that by 3 years of age.
She can feed herself, she just chooses not to.
Well, right. And at 18 months, a child is already starting to display that behavior of, boy, this feeding thing, I'd rather play. I don't need to eat right now. I'd rather play. So you do run, and at 3 you definitely have it. My son is now 7. He could go 24 hours without ever eating. It just doesn't cross his mind.
Oh, but you're not giving him the nutrients he needs, and some people would look at that.
He still eats.
He still eats.
But I'm simply
saying... You're not concerned. You're always not concerned.
On a day that we got... Well, and even pediatricians today are letting us know that, an underweight child, not malnourished or undernourished, but an underweight child is nothing to panic over, because unfortunately, like us, the last 10 years have seen us probably both gain a little bit more weight than we should have. As adults, we tend to gain weight. So you don't need to panic if your child doesn't seem to be...
So you have to keep those New Year's resolutions, Jarrett.
I'm trying.
Especially. It's harder when you're at home more to be able to do that. Work food could be a problem, but if you're constantly on the go, like you were as a therapist, that's different because you're just grabbing and going, and it's sometimes not as bad.
And there is science behind that, and the science behind that is, and this is why a child, a toddler, a child, not a teenager, but a child and a toddler can go hours without eating, because work and play is actually an appetite suppressant. The chemicals within the brain suppress the mechanism in our brain that says, wow, my belly's kind of full or empty, I need to eat. Work and play is actually a natural suppressant.
Interesting. Okay, so we go there to 2, and we're still continuing with the food and feeding, but now it's time to really become more artistic, and the ability to utilize crayons, painting,
absolutely.
All these different things. Starting
with a brush.
Starting having them, form their letters a little bit, maybe copy different things, a circle, a line, a square,
right. Copy,
but it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be
at all.
Picasso. So tell us a little bit of what
you do.
It might be
Picasso.
So tell me a little bit.
I've seen plenty of young paintings that have been Picasso.
So tell me about 2. A little bit, because then we're going to stop, and then we're going to go right into cognitive. But go to...
Well, and let's, here's again, we talk about that issue, that kind of area of messiness. Your child is showing at 2 years of age, showing that interest in, boy, I'd like to get my fingers into that paint. I'd like to get my fingers into that pudding and draw with it instead of eating it. But here's what a parent can do at home if it's not the time to be messy. Give your child a paintbrush and water.
Yes.
Water with a piece of paper out in front of it, because it will mark the page. A nice big paintbrush. You could get a paintbrush that you use for your house even, but a nice big one with a handle that the child can get the bristles in, get color in it or water in it, and let them do that. Again, here's where you're going to see your child at 2 years of age start to experiment with grasp. A lot of them might still be doing that fisted hold and turning it over, but you might see your child start to grab it more like the way we hold a pencil or a spoon or a fork, with the palm side, instead of the palm being turned over like this, but the palm is now up. It happens at various stages at that 2.5 year developmental stage of how they do it. But now let's talk about the fine motor. They're going to have to take that brush, get it into that little cup.
Exactly.
Bring it back over to the paper. You're building attention span.
Yes.
You're building the connection of this is what I have to do to accomplish a task. And again, these are things that can be done right in the high chair. While you're taking care of some other business, you can be doing that right with your child. And again, if your 2-year-old isn't necessarily doing this, perfect time to do hand over hand. Don't grab their hand here, because at 2, we know what's happening. That child is smacking that hand away. You can do it from here to here. They will let you do it.
Interesting. So now we're finished with fine motor, going to cognitive, and now we're back to pregnancy. And really before even the baby's born, and the way we can kind of teach cognitive in certain ways, and see if Jarrett's ready to delve into that one in a way. But I think that ultimately it's talking and all the time, and teaching cognitive at an early age to the point where they're not born. It's more about talking to mom, talking to her about different things, involving the ability to change your voice and do different things, maybe even name the child if you already know the sex of the child. This is cognitive. This isn't, it does involve speech, but the more we can kind of for them to experience even before they're born, and I didn't do this in my 5, but I think I probably did my first, the more they're going to really feel safe when they come out.
That is, and that's the critical part. Science has shown us, we know that the child in the womb is developing, and we know that last 2 months is when all the organs have developed. Brain is there, it's intact, and that's the maturity. And we think, well, how can a newborn comes out with seemingly not a lot of set of skills? But we now know that newborns aren't blank slates like what we thought 50 years ago. We now know they come out they're born with wonderful sets of skills that work in their environment. But this is the role. Does it have an impact cognitively? Absolutely, because the safe environment, the soft words, the nurturing, nurturing. That is that child.
That'll help with sleep bugs and all that.
Yeah, right. That child can hear those things in the womb. Now they're not going to hear them clearly, and then certainly they're not going to understand them. But there has been research done that has shown that a developing fetus in a harsh environment or exposed to loud noises, emotionally and cognitively, that they're born without the same set of skill sets that help them. There's a delay, there's a deficiency. So it could seemingly seem so ridiculous to our audience, but they know that we are sincere about these things, and they've seen that it work. They know that this is the truth. It matters. You're absolutely right.
The good news is my wife's a kindergarten teacher, so even though chaos at night, the 8 hours that Jennifer was at school every day while she was pregnant was probably the most nurturing environment she could be in.
Yep.
Not home, at work. Why? Because what's the most nurturing environment out there? In school? Kindergarten. Yeah. Kindergarten is a place where you feel the most peace, you feel the most love, and it's because it's so controlled. And so, and that there'll be debates on that one.
Well, the best kindergartens.
The best kindergartens.
The best kindergartens.
Well, my wife's
the
best kindergarten
yes.
teacher. Okay, so we get back. More Total Education, Neil with Jarrett. We're going to go into cognitive some more. We're just in the womb. We got a long way to go. We'll be back in just a moment.
Here comes the monster. The Tickle Monster.
Just imagine what a little time can do for your family.
And again, Total Education with Neil. Go to my website, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley. Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley. And Instagram, Total Tutor. A lot of different places you can find me. Again, for our radio fans out there in the Pittsburgh area, 88.3 WRCT, 9 a.m. Thursday, Fridays, 4:30, and WWNL, 3 o'clock Saturdays. The shows vary from celebrity guests. And interesting, Jarrett, some of the conversation we had with celebrities this week. I think you enjoyed the conversation we had with Norm Johnson, former Steeler kicker. That was a treat. Can you believe that? I just reached out with him into LinkedIn. And by the way, you're invited to interview with Bill Cartwright, the one of the Chicago Bulls. Yes,
great center from the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, but also had a conversation yesterday. I'm being a name dropper with Rick Barry. Oh my gosh!
Greatest free throw shooter in NBA history.
Exactly. So that's the fun thing about the celebrity show. 3 o'clock, but also you go to my website and check out all those cool things. So let's jump right back in to Fine Motor, which again, our passion's education. One thing I wanted to talk about, that he was not on the Total Education Hour, so people that out there that have to check out this podcast. We went over President Obama's State of the Union and how education was probably mentioned 60% of the time. Kudos to him for that. But early childhood education, and I am calling out politicians now. I am calling out politicians, and we're going to have them on the show. Mayor Peduto, your friends will be on Facebook. You will definitely come on the radio show. And I want to hear how everyone's going to invest in early childhood education. Yeah, because that's what we're devoting the last 4 months to our show, you know?
And you know, there's so much when we look at the dysfunction of government and Congress and the House and the Senate. What we are starting to see, and we may not agree on climate change or those other things, but we are now starting to see that slowly both parties are really seeing the value of early childhood education, Head Start programs, early intervention. Whereas I think even a decade ago, even on both sides, both parties, there was this notion of, hey, they're your kids, you raise them, you take care of them. It's your responsibility as the parent. But now both parties. There was a wonderful editorial written by a Republican congressman right in around here from Pittsburgh that really highlighted the benefit of Head Start, early Head Start, and early childhood education. I don't know if we would have seen that a decade ago.
The reason is because, again, they have finally seen the crisis of the family. The crisis of the family going on, lots of single-family homes, lots of poverty from those single-family homes. We're 1/6 of the country is on welfare, so you really have to look at, in a specific manner, how many kids are growing up in poverty and how many kids need those extra services that we talk about having time when they have to work on minimum wage at $6.50, $7 an hour.
And we may not be able to change poverty, but what we can change, and hopefully we can, but what we can change is the effects of poverty or the effects of the lack of time that a parent, or how about this, as therapists, you know, one of the things that we were there to do is if a family, a young family, a young parent, maybe two parents, just really didn't know how to parent. And we think so many times this should be natural. It isn't, especially with other circumstances that might be going on, particularly the age of a parent. But one of our roles was what we started 4 years ago with this vision it was a simple vision with a big goal, and that was to change the world, change the way we saw parenting and the way we raise children to a world of community and experience and love and nurturing. And here's what we're seeing with that whole early childhood experience is that, and what we've highlighted on this show, take those mundane, monotonous, and even hard things that you're doing every day and turn them into a wonderful experience.
And I'm calling out politicians, and it starts from the local to the national level. In 2014, I'm going to do that. So jumping back to early childhood education, talking about the womb, which again, I don't know how many.
As early as you can get, I guess.
You can get. That they're understanding things in the peace, but the environment. So then they're born. And I experienced this 1 month ago today, which is, that's what my wife put 1 month, and I'm getting a little confused. This is not the second. So she's not sleeping very well. I'm going to have to
it's been a month,
No, today's not the 2nd of February. January 2nd, Xavier is.
Yeah.
So where is she? I guess she's thinking 1 month is 4 weeks. That's the lack of sleep, but I'm going to have to let her have that one for sure in her post on Facebook. 1 month is a couple days. The thing is that right from the beginning, the environment, the child is born, especially my wife had a C-section. We get the baby onto the table. And Dad's the first one. That's what's so great. I was the first person to hold all 5 of my children.
And look at your face when you said that. I mean, you couldn't see it, but when you go to watch the show online or on TV, I want you to take a look at your face when
I was the first to hold my child, and it's so tremendous. And to really see that development, see that. But right off the bat, you're talking to them. Yep. That's creating that cognitive ability. You're talking to them. You're telling them how much you love them. You're saying their name. You're kind of just seeing how they're reacting. And at that earliest age, you're able to see that they understand you because of they know Daddy's voice. They know Mommy's voice. And that's such an amazing thing. And that goes back to when they're in the womb, and this is again, we're not going to go politics, but I'm going to go my pro-life issue, that they understand so much. And that this is the key component of all this is that human being developing now here, they are already ready to become part of the family the first couple hours.
Absolutely. A newborn enters this world with a set of skills that are significantly adapted to that life. Now, there's a lot of skills that they don't have yet, and here's what we all see as parents and as caregivers with that newborn: the inability for us to provide them with comfort when they're upset. And that's the issue where we've seen the parent would say, he just cries all the time, and I can't get him to stop. And there could be medical issues too. But within the brain, the cognitive development, what is happening there is that the brain has not developed the filters yet. And here's the example that I always use. You're at a get-together, a party, and there's noise all around you. And you don't pay any attention to it until you hear from across the room, Neil. And what happens? I know our audience's experiences. You turn around. Somebody said my name. That's the amazing thing about the brain filtering. Well, a newborn doesn't have that filter. And that's what the role is, that nice, and there's the womb for you. It's dark, it's quiet, it's super secure.
It's not.
But that's not the world. But what do we do for that? Think of, the birth process itself, a room with bright lights and tons of, it has to be that way, but many people, and they're in your face, and they're probing you. Imagine the stress for that newborn at that point. But there's the face of the reassuring father, talking to that child, swaddling, getting them nice and comfortable. And it's an emotional need, but there's cognitive development in there. We highlighted this, I think, on a show just a little while ago, the amazing ability for your 2-week-old to open the mouth when they see the bottle coming or mom starting to get close. They open the mouth. It appears to be instinctive to us, but it's learned.
They know exactly what's going on. And honestly, till we figure out the amount of demands of feeding, either bottle or the other, the stress of the parent leads to the cognitive ability. And if you're completely stressed out because you got absolutely no sleep, last night I got a little sleep, yay! And it was a sound sleep because we finally went up to the room. We were playing some shift thing when she was nursing. I give a bottle. We decided we're all going to go upstairs because it's just not giving us, neither of us any sleep. And at this point at 1 month, or what Jennifer calls 1 month, finally we are seeing something very amazing. We're seeing that Xavier is feeling comfortable. Xavier is feeling loved. And with both parents in the same room together, what a better thing. So these fathers that decide, well, you handle it. I'm sleeping. I'm going to another room. I got to go to work today. Or worst case scenario, not worst case scenario, the other way around. Well, I took care of them all day. You feed them the bottle. I'm sleeping. The team effort is so important in a couple that it has to be part of that from the beginning so the child feels loved.
Isn't that interesting? Two guys, talking about how the the dad has to be an important team, just as important as
Exactly.
the mother in the team process.
And we're seeing
that
about
means
50%,
feeding, feeding, changing. That there's no gender lines here when you're parenting that. I think there's no gender lines when you're parenting at all, but especially when you're talking about a newborn. It's not that's your job because that's the woman's job, and this is my job because that's the dad's job. That there aren't those things. The best role is, again, that team approach.
The more you stick to a team, the more you don't throw one thing on one person. The times you have to do that, times you have to give them that opportunity. But especially with the most stressful times, which are bedtime, breakfast, the meals, if it's possible, be there, be involved. That's the key. So,
but there's a wonderful, and I want to just highlight the cognitive experience at this early age. There's this John Watson, and again, he had some. There were some definitely unique and approaches that he had, but we're going back to the 1920s with the earliest kind of recognition of, wow, these children, these newborns come in with a set of skills that are pretty remarkable, that really adapt them incredibly for life. And at that age, John Watson, he was a resident at Johns Hopkins at that point. He had already started to do experiments, and we wouldn't do these experiments today, but he was already doing experiments built around basic needs of sleep and feeding and diapering, and the cognitive and social experience that they have with that child. So he was one of the first to notice, or at least in the medical field, to document that, hey, when this child is really hungry, they're showing the signs of anger, not pain or fear, but they're showing the emotion, the primordial emotion of rage. And wow, when I feed this little guy, suddenly he's happy, and you know what? He kind of smiled at me, and he writes this, and it's beautiful. He writes this, and he goes, and they grabbed my lab coat at like a month. Grabbed my lab coat, and he recognized that there was a cognitive experience of that. The cognitive experience is, oh, this guy's going to come and feed me. I know this guy. The emotional experience, oh, now I'm happy. I'm not angry anymore. And then the social experience of the adult felt of, wow, did you see what that little guy just did?
Exactly.
Little girl just did. Pretty amazing stuff.
Amazing where we're at in talking cognitive, and we're very early in the point next time, and it's going to be early. Again, we're kind of recording. We'll probably record very quickly. It's like it was like 6 weeks ago, and now we're going back into. It was late. It was early December, and now we're in late January, to the point of very late January. And then next we'll be going and delving into next show, the whole process of cognitive ability up to 2. And then I think we have to go into the adaptive. And then we'll kind of jump back at the 2 years old, involving the areas of behavior, the areas. So all these things, we want to know what you think. Email me, nhaley@totaltutor.org. Total Tutor Twitter, Neil S. Haley Facebook, all the things, and check us out. And let us know what you think and what questions do you think you need to delve into when we involve this crazy world of birth to 2. I mean, there's so much involved. And I would be interested when we're talking about 6-year-olds, we're talking about school, and we're going into math, English, science. That'll be a fun, unbelievable thing. And I have how far we'll go on that route. But
it sets the foundation, and that's what we establish. And here we go back to discipline. We set the foundation for all the things that come later. And the words you used were totally appropriate. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not the 100-yard dash. And that's why these things that might seem so insignificant, the child grabbing your lapel, your jacket, your nose, have quite a lot of meaning.
And the complexity of all those things as well. So we've kind of gone into now, we're going to continue this process next month. Tune in, especially internationally, and let me know what you think. Again, totaltutor.net. I hope everyone has a great day, and we'll talk again next month. Some more Total Education Neil with Jared. Take care, everyone.